Hi everybody, welcome back. This is video 6 in a series of 6. Our first video was an overview of the 5 essential factors to get your business to show up on Google. This is the last of those 6 videos, and we hope that you guys have had a chance to look at each one and that each one created a momentum for you and has built that momentum to this final video, which is one of the most important aspects to get your website to show up on Google. And not only that, but coincidentally, this month and next month, Google is started to roll out a update on something that we're going to talk about today, and that's the user experience. So welcome, and I know you're not seeing a lot of fancy production on these videos. We want to put the information out there as fast as possible, so we're not taking time to, mega produce this and make it look like a Hollywood production or anything like that. It's organic traffic, right? It's organic because it's SEO. So we'd like our videos to have more of an organic feel, more of a natural feel. And so just so you guys know, I'm actually recording this on just a regular iPhone and going over my notes. So if you see me kind of look away, that's what I've been doing through this series, because I don't want to miss a spot. It's not that I don't know the information. It's the information is very vital and important. And I want you guys to get as much out of these videos as you can. And as a business owner, I know that it's tough to get the information you need when you need it. So that's why I'm trying to put this information out as quickly as possible. So without further ado, we're going to go on. And also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and make sure to click the bell, because when you click on the bell, then that'll remind you when our next video is up, and you can be one of the first ones to see it and take that information and apply it to your website or give it to your marketing team or your web team. All right, so let's get started. So number one on our list today is, number one on these 5 factors that we did last time was to make sure that the technical SEO is up to par. We want to make sure that your on-page SEO is up to best practices, to make sure that the content is up to best practices. And then number 4 was to make sure that the off-page SEO, the links and everything else that's out there on the web, is up to best practices. And then today is the 5th factor, the 5th essential factor to get your business to show up on Google. And it's probably one of the, I would say, most important, maybe second most important, if not at least third most important, even though it's number 5 on the list. It's not the 5th most important, all right? So keep that in mind. So we're talking about UX today. So UX means user experience. So user being your traffic or your website visitor or your app visitor. If people are coming through your app, you want to make sure that we as a visitor to your website have a great experience. And nowadays, most people look at websites on their mobile device, whether it be a cell phone or a tablet. Most people don't shop or visit sites on their laptops or their desktops much anymore. About 70% of that traffic has moved to mobile devices. So you want to be sure you're proactive about this. And the first thing we're going to talk about being proactive on UX or user experience is that you want to make sure that your mobile site is not a mobile site. In other words, you designed it first to be mobile, not have a desktop site and then a mobile site. Don't have 2 separate sites, and don't just have a desktop site that responds to mobile. All right, that was old school. That's like 2016. It's 2022, right? So we want to make sure that we're using best practices for this year and beyond. So best practices is Google is indexing all the websites mobile first. So that means that your design is mobile first and then desktop. All right, so keep that in mind. Next thing that we're going to talk about here is going to be our mobile friendly or mobile usability feature on the site. So basically that includes quite a lot of things. All right, so we're looking at the errors on the site, and oftentimes you can check this on Google Search Console, and oftentimes you might get a message from Google that says, hey, your text is too small to read, or clickable elements are too close together, or clickable elements meaning buttons, right, on your site. If 2 buttons are like layered almost on top of each other, and a user goes to a mobile device and all that stuff shrinks, the buttons shrink, it's going to be hard for somebody to push on either button, and they might end up pushing on both buttons, and then that's not a good experience. The other thing is you want to make sure that the content is within the screen, right? Within the screen. So I still see sites out there. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was on a website and the content was too far out. In other words, I couldn't read the margin on this side because it was running over because it was not what? Mobile first, right? It might have been mobile responsive because then what I did is I tilted my cell phone vertically and then I pushed it in with my fingers and the text shrunk to the size. But that's not mobile first, right? You have to be mobile first. All right, next thing we're gonna talk about here is mobile page speed. So a lot of people have done, check their mobile page speed before. If you read the description below on this video, I will have some links where you can test your mobile page speed, specifically the Google mobile page speed insights page. So what this does is it gives you a rating on a scale from 0 to 100, and you want to be up in the 70s or 80s scale. I know it's really tough for mobile right now to get your website to be in the 70s or 80s, but it can be done. All right, it's not impossible. It can be done. Just spend a little effort, a little bit more time, and get a web developer to work on your site if that has to be the case. Pay the web developer a little extra money just to make sure that this gets done within a timely fashion. And remember, this Google update is happening right now as I'm releasing this video. So your website could be losing traffic at this moment if none of these things have been taken care of on your website. All right, the technical SEO, and more importantly, or as importantly, the mobile first experience. All right, user experience, UX. So mobile speed, real simple, 3 seconds or less, right? So it's got to load in 3 seconds or less. It's not complicated, but it can be if you've got big images, or if you're importing text from another site, or part of the content that's on the page is coming from the cloud and the other part's coming from your hard drive, and you get too many fragmented pieces coming from different sources. You want to make sure you center everything that's being loaded up on the site is coming from your server where your site is hosted. All right, that's really important. And obviously not the third-party code or third-party stuff that needs to be on your site, like if you're tagging a web page that you're tracking, or if you're using a tracking code for a couple of web pages that you're testing, then obviously that's going to be a third-party code, so you don't have a lot of control over that. But Google's not really going to excuse that anymore. They used to say, we understand it's third-party code, so we're not going to go as rough on you on that. But now, it's the rubber's meeting the road, and this Google update is really kind of buttoning down everything as far as mobile is concerned. And you want to make sure that all your mobile assets, your mobile features on your website are up to speed, up to par, up to best practices. And most importantly, the last thing I'm going to talk about here is going to be the core web vitals, right? So core web vitals tied to the page experience. So now Google has moved from kind of an overall website experience to a mobile experience, or mobile responsive site, and now it is mobile first. And not only that, but they're focusing on the time it takes for different pieces of your website to load and to maintain that shape that it's supposed to be in, or that area of the page where it's supposed to be, right? So sometimes when you move a web page up and down, you'll see content kind of start feeding into it as you're moving the page up. Keep that in mind, okay, as I go through this, okay, and then it'll all make a little bit more sense. So with core web vitals, we are talking about what Google defines in Search Console as LCP, the largest contentful paint. This is the amount of time that it takes to render the largest content element, whether it be text, an image, a video. Videos, we're going to talk about that here at the end. And it's visible within the viewport, so visible within the screen of that device. All right, going back to mobile. So if your video or your image is still loading and someone landed on the page, and 3 seconds later they're moving down and your image still hasn't loaded, it's still loading, that's not a good experience. So that's a core web vital issue. All right, so make sure you check that and make sure that everything that's perhaps in a large block level element, or anything that's really important that tells the reader that this URL is actually loading, it should already be loaded, all right, before they actually start scrolling down your web page. The next thing that I want to talk about, that was LCP, largest contentful paint. We're also going to talk about aggregated LCP. So there's that report that shows the Core Web Vitals reports on the time that it takes for 75% of the visits to the URL in the group to reach the LCP state, or the aggregate LCP state. So in other words, Google is also keeping stats on not just one visitor coming to your site and how long it takes, but an aggregate, all right? So the more people come to your site and the more people get a bad experience, then, you know, your ranking is gonna depreciate, you know, because this is important. This is for ranking. The next thing I'm gonna talk about is FID, first input delay. This is a little micro unit, and we're talking about here is the time when a user first interacts with your page, like clicking on a link, tapping on a button, you know, clicking on the bell, you know, to get that alert. If they click on it and it doesn't respond, then that's not a good experience either. So it should be like a millisecond, and it reacts, right? So that's really important. And there's also an aggregate FID, or aggregate first input delay. And again, that's like 75% of all the visits that come to this web page, your web page. And what are they experiencing? What's the value of that? Is it really holding true to every experience, right? Next up, and the last element of the Core Web Vitals is actually something that's really in the design area, but it still affects the user. So this is the CLS, and this is a cumulative layout shift. So basically what it does is Google is measuring the sum of the total of all the individual shift scores for an unexpected layout shift that occurs during the entire lifespan of the page. Yeah, that's Google's definition. That's not my words. So, and the reason I'm reading this to you word for word, because I don't want to miss out any sort of nuance that Google puts in their definitions or in the information that they let out to the public. So this basically means that the score is 0 to any positive number, where 0 means no shifting, and the larger the number, the more layout shift on the page. So you want this number to be small, right? Because you don't want a lot of shifting to go out on your page. So this is your CSS, your cascading style sheet. This is the theme of your website. You want to make sure that your website is clean, and when you're loading a page, you know, all the elements, the picture, the text, it's all going up and down the page. It's not like trying to catch up, right? And it's not shifting around to fit onto the design of the page. So I'm moving my hands like this because, like, let's pretend like this is the text and this is the image, right? And you're scrolling down, here comes the text, and all of a sudden, boop, the image pops in, and it's like, oh, it's not in the right spot. And then it moves around. That's your cumulative layout shift. And what they're measuring is like, how many times does that happen on that page? And this is important because having the elements shift while the user's trying to interact is a bad experience, right? I mean, you can't read the image or the text if the text is shifting. So let's say, for example, it's a cartoon on the page, and then all of a sudden the text is like, trying to catch up with that image because the text has all this creepy font or heavy font file that has to change the regular font into this creepy font or whatever. That's not a good experience for the user. It's cool that your website looks cool, but we have to keep the user in mind, because Google wants to keep the user in mind, because initially that's why Google was launched, was to aggregate all of this data, all these websites, to answer a question, right? You're a search. You're doing a search, right? You're a searcher. You're online looking for answers to your questions. Google, how much is the price of gas in Oklahoma? Google, what is the furthest distance from the sun to the furthest planet, or whatever, right? And Google scans billions of websites, and in split seconds, milliseconds, it gives you an answer, or not only a answer, but thousands of answers, and it indexes them in a specific order. So, cumulative layout shift. You want to make sure that your content pieces and everything on your page is not shifting around. You also want to make sure that your aggregate CLS, or your aggregate content layout shift, is great, 75% or better. 75% of those people that come to your site, those visits to your site, are actually having a good experience, right? In other words, things are not moving around the page. They can click and things will react, and everything is thumbs up. All right, folks. Well, that's the last video, and that's what I have for the last part of this series, which is the user experience. So I hope these videos have been helpful. And if I was talking too fast, or if you saw that, or if you heard what you saw, or saw what you heard, didn't make sense, just go down below, look at the description, because there'll be an outline of everything that was discussed in this video. And if you missed the other videos, be sure to go to those videos as well on our channel. And what I would do is I would copy the description first and then write your own notes on top of the descriptions or next to the descriptions. So that way you have as much information as you can from these videos. Again, we're doing these videos for small businesses that want to, number one, do their own SEO or do their own website work, or number two, small businesses that want to hire a marketing person and want to make sure that the marketing person knows what they're doing on their website. All right, this is all about your website, your footprint online. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me with these 6 videos. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be here with you, and I hope that you have great success online and that your business is successful. Best wishes, best of luck, and we will be back in a couple of weeks with another series of videos. Be sure to tune in then, so be sure to click on the bell, because you will be alerted as soon as our video releases. All right, take care and have a happy SEOing.